Thank you guys for joining very much. We're here with the cast and filmmakers of Cooties at Sundance. This is I've seen it described as a comedy horror film, which is a particular sort of thing, and where you guys find that the meeting point, how they augment and complement each other.
I don't know, I think when we were talking about the film, and obviously these two fine gentlemen wrote it, I think what was really interesting to us and to all of us, was this notion of a horror film and a comedy that could sort of be equal parts funny and equal parts horror. And I think horror comedies tend to skew more in one or the other direction. Mm-hmm. And I think it was really important to all of us making this, that the comedy be really funny and that the horror be really horrific, and that those two things are firing on both cylinders.
Yeah, I think it came in a lot of the performances, and then we also, in the tone of the film, based off the script, it changes partway through the film, where something very dramatic happens and it kind of is a big shift, and that is the kind of moment where it turns, there's still funny moments throughout the film, but it kind of turns more darker into that realm of horror. So,
is there an effect on the audience that
hopefully
they have a laugh? So what is that? What are you trying to get out of it?
we want to kind of have them have a full ride. We want to kind of get all the emotions kind of coming out, and to have people feel that they've experienced all these things throughout the whole film.
And visually, that was one of the things that we tried for, very much from the beginning, was go very bright. It's a bright, normal day at a normal school, and it's very funny and fun, and there's a bunch of lovable characters, and then there's a very clear shift, and that's basically when it turns to night, and the mood, the tone, and everything gets a lot darker once a specific moment happens.
This is a bit of substitute teacher wish fulfillment, this film, right? I mean, if anyone's ever subbed, this is, if you want to tell something in the story, but there's an outbreak in the school, and teachers get to go head to head with their students.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of kids these days are kind of controlled, and I think they've been kind of with drugs, with things that kind of make them not be their kids who they really are. So I think this virus kind of shows kids, it lets them do whatever they want in an extreme level, and then the teachers have
Is that my heartbeat, or is there a club
There's
upstairs?
a
Okay, cool. Just making sure. I was like, wow, I'm nervous. Yeah, I think a lot of horror comedies tend to go wacky. It's a lot of crash zooms and whip pans of stuff, and which is great. I mean, I love Evil Dead 2 and Shaun of the Dead, but Ian and I, when we were writing it, were keen to kind of tap into a more sort of dialogue-based humor. We always would describe it as an episode of The Office if these zombie kids showed up, tonally. And with the cast, we tapped into that so well with that sort of style of humor. And I think the benchmark for horror comedies is American Werewolf in London, because it does exactly what Elijah was saying. It effortlessly sort of alternates between total face value humor, comedy, and then all of a sudden it's scary without needing to inject any humor into it, and just sort of floats down this river between the two and does it really effortlessly, which is obviously really hard. So we were kind of trying for that.
Yeah. What did they tell you guys performance-wise?
The thing with when we met Allison to work on this movie, it was we sat down, and it wasn't just about the horror or the comedy. It was about some of the kind of underlying themes of the kids and the food and all that kind of chaos that, even though it is a fun movie, there is these subtext, and that she just, came to it with all that already. So she really had a strong understanding of what we wanted to do. Yeah. So it was just a perfect fit. It was yes, you got it. Yeah. We're on the same page. Let's go.
But I think playing comedy deadly serious is the key to it. Just be deadly serious about everything. So if you're in a scene and it's weird and someone's doing something weird, you just play it deadly serious, and then if you're being attacked and it's scary, then you're deadly serious about that.
That was kind of the vibe the entire time.
Yeah.
And that it would either play to the comedy of the scene, the way it was written, or it would play to the horror, and just coming from a place of honesty was always the place.
Yep. You've got some priceless reaction shots in there to people
so good
doing weird things. Yeah. It's great.
It's such a bizarre.
No, I was just going to say what you mentioned about the teacher thing. My whole entire family are public school teachers, and we talked about that a lot early on. That it was it is really I think that literally the hardest job in the world, also the most thankless. And we really wanted to get to a place where it was the catharsis of what a substitute teacher does want to do to the kid that I was in class of like switching seats and like my name's Andrew, like hilarious. And then it was finally it was there was something cathartic about it for us about finally like really getting to whack those kids.
Yeah.
And I think that was a fun tone to play with, and then also that like.
Kind of an
really
ode to
hard.
teachers.
No, yeah, it was that's actually one of the things I'm most proud about in the movie. That there's actually a lot of talk about like what it is like to be a teacher and how that whole bullshit trope of like those who can do and those who can't teach is such an offensive, like such nonsense. And we at least get to discuss that in the film, which was really I was really thankful about.
How do you guys work together as co-directors? It's this increasing trend of people directing films together that years ago never happened. How do you, how does it augment what you're doing, and how do you divide up the labor?
Yeah, this is,
Or is it a free-for-all?
yeah, it's kind of natural. I mean, we don't like one of us does not do like one thing. Like it depends on the scene, depending on the day, and we kind of go back and forth on the day of and work with. One of us will be on set, kind of right with the actors. One of us will be kind of looking at the monitors and doing that. So it kind of naturally happens. Yeah.
In theory, we plan everything out and we're on the same page. And I think that is the same thing with actors, that tonally and everything, we're on the same page before we even shoot. So, hopefully everything can keep the boat moving in the right direction.
Curious, Elijah, you have this shingle that produces horror films.
You have shingles? I'm sorry.
Oh my God!
Oh God!
have
Everybody
not-
move away from Elijah's
I
got
have not-
shingles.
Break the news.
Oh.
chickenpox.
What is the appeal of horror in particular? What is it, and what does it say? What does that genre mean?
Yeah, well, no, I don't know. I've been a fan of the genre for a long time, since I was a kid. I think I saw my first horror movie when I was like 5 or 6, and I've sort of always loved it. And there's that thing when you're a kid where it's kind of forbidden fruit, so you're just psyched to see it because you're not supposed to.
Right.
But I've always loved it as a, I think it's a great kind of artistic medium. It's a way for us to express our deepest fears. You can get into sort of subject matter that you can't express in the same way with a drama. I find it artistically really kind of pleasing. In the imagery of horror films, I kind of love. It's something that we can all relate to. I like the sort of atmosphere of them. I don't know.
Films you were referencing as you were making this one?
Well, it's funny, it was an idea that my producing partner Josh came up with, and we had this idea of making a very serious film. Initially, Cooties in our mind, when we first kind of talked about it, was kind of in reference to, there's this great Spanish horror film, Who Can Kill a Child, about these killer children on an island. It's horrifying. It's so good.
And not funny at all.
And not funny. Not funny. And so that was our initial idea, and then Lee heard about the idea and was like, that's brilliant, it has to be a comedy. And we're like, yeah, it is called Cooties, you're right.
If I recall, you were like, no, it's serious. And I was like, it's called Cooties.
Yeah. I couldn't really...
No one's going to be like...
I couldn't really argue with that.
You either make it serious and change the title, or we keep Cooties, which would be insane to change the title
Yes.
and make it a horror comedy.
Yeah.
Because it is one of those ideas where, like, really, no one's done a movie.
It's
called Cooties?
totally a no-brainer. You're like, I can't believe no one has done this before.
Well, it's in the 80s, like, those video covers, you can just see it, like, Cooties.
Totally.
It's catchy.
We were
right next
shocked
to
that-
April Fool's Day.
We
and
were
everything.
shocked that there wasn't a movie in the 70s or 80s called Cooties.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of incredible.
Yeah.
They did everything else. They did Killer Yogurt, The Stuff. Have you seen that Larry
heard
Cohen
of
film,
it.
The Stuff?
No.
The Lift, Killer Elevator. That was a classic.
Wow.
Waited a long time for something to happen in that one.
It's Jack Frost.
What about my favorite? I'll give you my favorite one. This is deadly serious. I've not been able to find this film. This is the greatest tagline in movie history. It was at my local video store. It was a movie about a killer banker called The Banker, and the front cover was a guy wearing like a business suit holding a crossbow, pointing it, and he had like war paint on. The tagline: his interest is deadly. It was the greatest tagline in movie history. I love
I
That's
think that needs to be
amazing.
remade anyway.
Yeah.
Well, they used to just tick it off. In the 80s, they would just go, "What bankers? Yeah, we did that. Yogurt. Yeah,
Yeah.
elevators, cars, killer cars. There's a killer truck."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And some of them are masterpieces, like
They
Duel
skipped
and
Cooties. They must have been like, no, we can't do that. Or something.
Yeah.
They must have just jumped over Cooties somehow.
yeah. There's a couple. Eli Roth always talks about why anyone didn't do Thanksgiving. He wants to make that movie. You know,
I'm desperate for him to make things.
to make Thanksgiving.
That's
yeah.
still one of my favorite things he's ever done. is
That trailer.
Every time I see him, I'm like, make that film.
Please make it.
So good.
Thanksgiving.
It will be
White
us,
meat, dark
you know,
meat, all will be
just
carved.
us watching.
Yeah, right,
No one has to watch
right.
it. I see that.
Well, thanks for coming to talk to us about it, guys.
Yeah, man.
Appreciate
Yes.
it. Cooties premiering at Sundance.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thanks so much.
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome.